Welcome to Pepper Shock Media's Marketing Expedition podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in marketing and advertising. Now here's your host, Rhea Allen.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition series. I'm Rhea Allen, President and CEO of Pepper Shock Media, also an integrative marketing consultant, and I'm on Instagram as the Marketing Boss Babe. And today we are recording a podcast and webinar all at the same time with the lovely Allison Cunningham.
Thank you.
And Allison, you are officially the Vice President of Client Relations, also known as a partner at Talent Spark.
That's correct.
Okay, what is Talent Spark?
We are a Boise-founded and Boise-based recruiting firm that works with companies of all sizes to help them find the talent that they need to help their business thrive. So we live here in Idaho, and we decided that we wanted to support Idaho and Idaho-based companies.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you said that Talent Spark started in 2015?
That's correct. So my business partner, Stephanie, started this company in 2015, so a little over 3 years, kind of coming up on 3 years ago, in this space. And, I joined her about a year and a half ago as a partner, and we've grown a lot in the last year and a half, and we've had a lot of fun doing that work and helping a variety of different companies with all of their hiring needs.
Good. Now, why did you decide to partner with Stephanie? What happened?
Well, it was an easy choice. Stephanie and I worked together for a number of years when we were both at St. Luke's Hospital. And I'm not sure if I've had any more fun with anyone that I've ever worked with than Stephanie. She's the consummate professional, but also fun to work with in that space. So she had started this as a passion and wanted to have more of that entrepreneurial and really make a difference in that community. I know both of us felt very strongly that as corporate recruiters, when we needed outside help, which always happens, no matter how strong your team is, that sometimes you need extra support, we were going to companies all over from Los Angeles to Chicago, and we sort of thought, gosh, why would you need to do that? Couldn't you get those great services here with that sort of focus within Idaho? So she had started it, and it just wasn't quite the right time for me. So, we kept in contact, and, when she came and asked for me to join, it was a no-brainer. So we've had a great time working together.
All right. So why is it that you do what you do?
I almost feel embarrassed when I talk about why I do what I do, because I just love it. I love recruiting, and I just have such a passion around people, because other than that, you have equipment and a printer and computers, and you don't have a business, you don't have people. And it's the people that make an organization, and they make a team, and that to me is the most important part of any business choice. And I think it's fun to find that right person, because it makes such a difference to the team or the business, and to be able to accelerate growth from a business perspective. Yeah. And then on a personal side, people's careers, we try to put them into this realm of business. And I think it's such a mistake to not remember that it's such a personal endeavor for people. It's their career, it's their family business. And we laugh that we get to feel like Oprah. All the time with everything, that it's like, and you get a job, and you get a job,
and you get a car, and you get a car.
And that's how it feels, like that amount of excitement every day, and helping people find careers that they're excited about that also help businesses grow. To me, there's nothing more fun that I could do with my time.
See, there's no shame in that. You
no,
should be
it is. It's always like, I just love it.
Yeah, and to be a people person.
Yeah,
and it's a good fit, because then you can attract and draw in the right people for the right position.
It is, and I love that part about it. I get to meet and talk to people all day, every day, and I get to hear their stories from their career path to what they're looking for from a family perspective or a lifestyle. And getting to know all of those different people is such a joy for me.
Good, cool. So if a company decided that they have, been hiring people all on their own and they've never had a recruiter before, walk me through the process. What happens if I've never hired a recruiter? What do I need to know? What do I need to be aware of? What am I going to go through if we were to hire Talent Spark to recruit for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the reasons we love working with Idaho-based companies is because it gives us an opportunity to get to know those companies and to understand what your culture is. So a lot of that initial part is to understand what is the role, what is your company and what's important for that fit? So we have a long conversation, what we call an intake, to learn about your culture. We like to meet with you in person if we can, if we're able, understand what your culture is, what that role is, and go through everything from the salary to how your team works. Then we lay out a plan. I think it's always important, like any other process, to have a plan and not go at it just to say, we're going to go out and find people. You know, what's the marketing behind it? And to set timelines like it's a project in there. So we talk about what those timelines are and what those goals are. And this is a great time of year to talk about timelines, because we get a lot of requests that say, well, we want to hire someone by the end of the year. And we often have to remind people, like, well, there's Thanksgiving, and then there's the week of Hanukkah, and then there's Christmas, and you don't actually have as much time as you think. And people are distracted. So what feels like 6 weeks all of a sudden became 3 and probably isn't doable. So talking about those type of things in the timeline and what your goals are. And then from there, the client kind of goes in the background, and we get to work on research from everywhere from competitors to what's going on in the market, and start reaching out to candidates as well. We do post roles for people if that's a request.
What's it called?
To post the positions, like we'll post the roles for you and help you with the marketing plan, and we'll go through the resumes that come in. But I think where a lot of the value comes is us reaching out to the passive candidates. And what a passive candidate is somebody who's happily employed somewhere else, and they're not looking for work. You know, if you like your job and that you're not...
They're comfortable.
Right. I mean, who's like, you know, it'd be fun tonight to go out on Indeed and apply for some positions. Like, that's not a, it's not a fun activity for people. So it's reaching out to those people, because a lot of times those are your best source pool of the people that are happily employed somewhere else.
And that's why using a recruiter could be really helpful, because I likely wouldn't have the time or the know-how necessarily to tactfully be able to reach out to somebody else that's working for a competitor, right?
And I think that's a lot of what we talk about. It's not that I think there's some people that want to talk about recruiting as rocket science. It's not. It's building a relationship with a lot of people, but that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of conversation, and it takes, that right message. We have worked with, when we were corporate working in-house, other recruiters that had a really hard time selling Idaho. They wouldn't know what story to tell candidates. They wouldn't know how to describe the lifestyle here. And then they don't have the right message, and then it takes that many more people to reach out to. And so some
especially
of it's,
if they relocate here, right?
Correct. And we're seeing a lot more of that with unemployment where it's at, and how fast Boise is growing, that the skill sets may not always be local. It's always preferable to hire local if you can. So here they can start, there's less risk that it's not a fit, but some roles require that out-of-state reach out, and if you've never been to Idaho, it's hard to tell that story to someone.
For sure.
And so some of it is just the right messaging, the right time that we do this, day in and day out. And then we really get to know those candidates based on your company, and we have a conversation with them about their technical skills and their culture fit and what they're looking for. And if that's all a match, then we present them to the client and get their feedback on what feels, if that's a fit or not a fit, and work with them to learn more about what they're looking for.
So do you do any types of assessments or anything, like personality tests or spelling tests or, I don't know, grammar tests?
That's a good question.
What do you do?
I think some roles require that and some roles don't. I think it's always something that we get that question a lot, because I do think that it makes people feel more confident in there. So one of the things that we recommend and can help with, and we help a lot of our clients with, is to make sure that you're using behavioral-based interviews. And that's not asking questions about hypotheticals or what would you do, but understanding what people have done. A lot of those sound like, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time when. And so we think that that is, your best and biggest tool. But when it comes to actual assessments, the one that we recommend that Stephanie is certified in is the Hogan Assessment. We use Hogan, which is less known than some like DISC or Strength Finders, but Hogan is the only legally certified assessment from a personality or work standpoint that can be used for making employment selections from. The other tools are fantastic, but they may have a bias to them from a selection perspective, so they're better used once someone's an employee, of how your team works together, and are not typically, not intended to be used as a selection process.
Okay, so it's just giving you some good information. Hogan, and it's Hogan?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, okay, and that must be named after somebody smart.
It is,
Came up with the test,
And it is a really, for lack of a better way to say it, it's a fun assessment of what you sort of see in there, and they have some unique vocabulary in there of how they describe people. And then of course there's technical tests as well. You see those a lot with IT, or like coding's a great, is an easy example to make sure that somebody actually can code, to give them a coding assessment, or writing assessment, grammar. Then there's sort of the technical ones. The Idaho Department of Labor has a huge bank of technical assessments that are all legally reviewed to make sure that you're not creating bias in your assessments.
Oh, wow.
In there, and that's everything from like IT related work to spelling and grammar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about a time.
Yes. Tell me about a time. Oh.
Tell me about a time when you had some great success with some of the big name companies around here.
Yeah, we, as I mentioned, we work with companies of all sizes, from our large employers to some of the small. But we work with a couple of our large employers in the Valley, and we have had a lot of fun work with them. And one of the areas that we have come on to help them with is what we call hiring ramps, or hiring projects, where we come in to hire a large number of people in a short amount of time.
So they have to ramp up really high, like, okay.
Correct, yep. So
Gotcha.
One of those that we did now 2 summers ago was with the J.R. Simplot Company, where they needed to hire about 100 salespeople throughout the nation.
And I only want 2. I mean, this is
it's a little bit different.
Piece of cake.
Very different process.
100.
Wow.
Across the nation.
Across the nation.
Everywhere.
So, yep, different territories across the whole area for their sales, and that was done over about a 3-4 month period to really deploy. There was some pre-planning before that, but those are fun because that really requires us to basically move in with them. We move into their home, we live with them, we get a lot of their equipment, and a lot of that is about creating that process and that timeline for, are you hitting those mile markers? When are you off? When is there potentially an opportunity for there to be risk? And a lot of it is really creating a fantastic candidate experience. If you're going to bring that many people on site, we had people flying in from all over the country to make sure that that's an excellent impression, whether they're hired or not, that they walk away saying, wow, Boise was a great city I've never been to, and wow, Simplot was a great company to work with, and I was treated with such respect and such value, and I feel really important through this process, even though I may not have gotten the role, because they may apply later. You may grow your sales organization, and now you've got someone in that area. We did a similar project, a little different in size, for Blue Cross last winter, where we hired 40 care coordinators. I think that ended up about 25 care coordinators for them in Treasure Valley, and then some other roles around that. And I think we wanted to make sure that that experience was really strong. And one of the fun parts about that is we had multiple, basically, invites to come in and hear about the role in Blue Cross. That we had candidates that would call their friends and say, "You've got to get down here. There's another session at 8 o'clock.
Nice.
Get there." And we had a couple of people that showed up in sweatpants almost. They were like, "I was out here, and they said I just had to come, and I'm, I know I'm dressed casually, but I heard it was a great opportunity." And that's the kind of experience that we hope to make for people, that literally, gets people out of their seat and motivated to make a change.
And we talked a little bit about the concept of employee branding.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about what you see as employee branding.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting subject that, with me being so passionate about recruiting, it falls in that area too, that there is a difference between your brand and your employment brand. And it's important that they align. So, if you take Nike, your employment brand can't be something that's unhealthy. You're obviously going to have an employment brand that's active and healthy, so they need to connect. But it's the brand about what's it like to work there. Not about what you're selling to people, not about what that experience is, but is it a fun workplace? Is it a serious workplace? Does it have stability, or is it changing a lot? Do you really go all out for birthdays, or is it a place where, you know, maybe people would rather just go home and see their families? And all of those are okay, but it's important that your experience matches your employment brand. Right. And here, as a lot of people know, the unemployment in the country is really low right now.
Right.
And in Idaho, it's even lower. We're one of the lowest states with under 2.5% unemployment.
Not a lot of candidates that are just readily available right now.
They're not. And what that really means is that we have significantly more jobs than we have people. And so your employment brand becomes even more important because we are at a place where you are not picking your candidates, the candidates are picking you. And then you need to have an employment brand and a candidate experience that candidates raise their hand and say, I'm interested in this. Right. This is something I want to be a part of. They match my values, they match my lifestyle, they match my energy level. The team size is what I'm looking for. The opportunities are there. What is my value going to be to the company? And all of those need to be revealed during the interview process. And you have to be mindful of the candidate experience, even for those that aren't selected.
Right.
You know, because maybe they applied, and they don't hear anything for 2 months. Right. That doesn't make people feel great.
Word of mouth, you know, and it can spread fast.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's very similar to your own brand. We need to kind of start thinking about employment brand like our own brand, that if someone had a terrible experience on an airline, they respond really quickly. You know, if someone is out there and they put a negative review, you're going to see those consumer-facing brands
disgruntled
respond.
Employees or something like that that are out there to,
And we respond really quickly to our consumers, and we're not really responding to our candidates and our employees yet. And all of that creates that candidate experience and your employment brand to make sure that it's a positive place and a place that people are excited about working.
Right.
You know, that's what you want people to walk away with. You know, maybe this isn't the right job, but when the right job opens up, that's the place I want to be. And so it's important to get out there, and I think that's when unemployment looked different, it wasn't as important because you had your pick of a lot of candidates, and now they pick you, and if they don't like what they see, they're going to go somewhere else.
Right. Well, and that's what recruiting is about, being able to recruit the right people and getting them on the right seat on the right bus.
And if you can do it and you can be proactive because you've got a great employment brand that people know about, and, you know, we talk about there's always be selling, you know, always be recruiting. You know, think about what their next hire is, building that relationship, you know, taking you out to coffee, making sure they know your story, seeing if they're going to be interested, because hopefully you continue to grow and you'll always need those people. So, you know, who's next? Who's going to fill that role? And it makes that, you know, for stronger candidates, and you can usually fill roles quicker too when you're in that proactive stage. And your brand is important to be proactive.
And you said that you can work with you in multiple different ways. You can have, you know, different levels of being able to hire you. Can you kind of walk me through what those are?
Yeah. Well, we sort of talked about one, which is the hiring ramps. So those are obviously going to be your larger companies because you probably don't need 100 people.
Yeah, no, not yet.
In a short amount of time.
Someday maybe, I don't know, we'll see.
So we have those for sort of our larger clients. Then we have professional executive searches that we work with. So those kind of fall into a couple different models. And some of it is the process we talked about of all the way from intake to reaching out to passive candidates, to sharing them with you, and then helping you through the process of selection all the way to offer. Where we work with others is if they need a little bit of help, or they've got part of that puzzle that may be challenging for them, is that with some of our clients, because to make it cost effective for some of our smaller clients, that we may help them with just parts of that. So we've done an assessment just for some clients that want a little bit of extra help, or it could just be you know, helping you to do some phone screens of the candidates that applied. Or going through your resumes, or sort of some of the things that we can help with.
Or reaching out to people who are working for somebody else because you don't really want to, but then, you know, if you hire the recruiter to do it, then it doesn't suddenly feel so like you're, you know.
That's a good point. And one of the phases that we do is what's called recruiting process outsourced, or RPO, which you'll hear in the HR world. And that's basically where you may not be big enough, or you need extra help, and you just outsource your recruiting to us. And so since we have a background in corporate recruiting, we do that for a number of clients. in that way, one of the advantages that we have is that we can sort of flip our identity, that sometimes we're Talent Spark and there's a little bit of an arm's length so that we can go after that competitor. And sometimes it helps if we're branded as Pepper Shock or any of our clients so that we can help them with their employment brand. And because we've been on the corporate side, we feel comfortable sort of flipping in and out of those identities, whichever makes sense for the client.
Like white labeling
exactly.
services, or you're sort of,
Someone shared that.
Outsourced, but you're in-house.
Yeah, exactly. I love the term.
Outhouse, but in-house.
Outhouse in there. Whichever one you need.
Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Well, that's great. And so I guess the benefit of hiring a recruiter versus trying to do it all on your own, I mean, it saves time. You're more likely to get the right candidates because that's what you do every day is hire people, after 15 years, I've definitely I've made some good and not so great. And, salespeople are always, I think the challenge in being able to get people that are quality, that want to stick around and help you promote your brand and all of that. So is there anything in particular with salespeople that you look for or that you do slightly differently just because it's maybe a slightly different offer or situation?
I think with salespeople, you have to be mindful that market moves really quickly. I used to, when I was recruiting almost exclusively in the sales world, the pace of sales is so much faster. And I think some people miss out on your top salespeople because their process is really lengthy or they've got big gaps.
Good to know.
Because they're sort of always be closing, so it's, getting to the end and once they're out there, the great part about salespeople is that a lot of them are open to hearing about new opportunities. So it's important to have all of your details ready to share with them. What are they selling? What's the value? What's the differentiator? What's their opportunity within that is important. And then, what is, being able to explain, the culture and their compensation.
Compensation's big, I'm sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Of what's that? And I think a lot of them, some of your strongest salespeople are more interested in the commission than they are in the base. They want a base to be able to live off of, that they can feel comfortable with their bills, but it's really what's the upside, for them. Because if they feel really confident selling, they know that they're going to, be successful and reach those numbers that they need to.
Right.
The territory is important. How much travel they have.
Right.
Are they in the field? Are they just on the phone? What's being asked of them. But sales is really fun to me because they are people. And so they quickly, they have these great phone screens and they move forward really quickly, which is. Great to work with, and they do have a quicker pace than some of the other roles that we work on. They want to get in there and kind of move forward, but they also have a lot of questions too.
Good.
I think it's important to have your information buttoned up.
Right. To figure out the compensation plan and figure out the benefits that they get and the things that they're selling, having tools ready to go for them to be able to sell quickly and not take up a long period of ramp up and training and all that, because you're right, they want to get to selling so that they can start making money. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, for sure. So the concept about employee branding and just the culture that you live in and where you can exude that externally into your recruitment process, have you, in terms of marketing to recruit people into these companies, what kind of tactics or tools have you been able to utilize to kind of showcase what that looks like for companies? Yeah,
it's an interesting question about tools because I think of it more as storytelling in there, that you have to understand what your story is and what's different about your story than another company that's out there, and then it's crafting that story. And then I think for me, because it's such a people-oriented area, that whatever platform you put it on is probably okay. LinkedIn from a recruiting perspective is going to be your gold standard. That's where, I read somewhere that over 80% of recruiters are using LinkedIn on there because it's such a great tool, and it's a great way to get your message out to a lot of people within there. But if that message isn't right, it doesn't really matter if you're on Indeed, something local, job, any of the ones that are around the area from your career builders, that message is really important. And so we talk about that branding everywhere from your job description to that email to that candidate. Does it sound like you, or does it sound like a template from Google? It's important to have certain things, but hopefully it has a voice in there that sounds different than any other sales role. You don't want your sales role at another media company that they read both of them and they're like, well, that sounds the same. Hopefully they're reading both of those and going, this one sounds like me. This sounds like something I'm interested in and I'm excited about.
Yeah, we get to be a little creative in our descriptions when we are a creative company, right? You want to be, not the bland and dry.
Yep. So I think it's understanding what your role is in the audience you're trying to find. How general the role is. Like if it's an accounting role or a general sales position, those tend to do okay on job boards, in there. But if you're looking for very niche industries or very specific skill sets, that's where job postings become more challenging, and oftentimes where we get involved in those as well, because the method of telling that story is still the same, but you've got to find those people first to be able to tell that story too, and they're not typically hanging out on a job board or in a resume bank. So
because if they're like very specific technical titles, then you have to go search for those types of people, right?
Yep. And then, tell the story of the company and the job and the opportunity and see if it's something that's of interest for them and something that's exciting for them.
Excellent.
In that space.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about already in recruiting in the world
of questions? The only thing I would share is, I think recruiting is truly a business decision, and it's important to think of it that way in the sense of, you can, if you want someone tomorrow and very quickly and it's a niche skill set, then it's probably going to cost you more. If you're willing to wait, when you have that list of 10 things that you're looking for, don't think that you're probably going to get all 10. You're probably going to get 7, and determine where the give and take is, and which ones you can do without and which ones you can't. I think the other part too is that there's this old feeling that you need to have 3 people that come in before you can make a decision. And sometimes a good person is a good person, and you don't need a comparison to it. So some of it is a business decision and making sure that you're being realistic about your expectations and your timeline. And then I think the other part too is to remember that it's personal for people. And the process should be treated that way. Make sure that you've got heart in the process. And that's a different way of thinking about business. And it's not because it's the nice thing to do, it's the smart thing to do from a business perspective. So make sure that you're treating people with respect and the way that you'd want to be treated if you were going through there, and recognize that it's a big decision for people, and it's has personal impact.
Very good.
In there. So that's all I would share in that space.
Tell me about a time when I would go to my internet and I would type in a URL to find you. What would I be typing?
You'd be typing in talentspark.com.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, talentspark.com. That's easy enough. Yeah.
I know. It's hopefully it'd be easier to find.
Very good. I had to throw that in there.
It's good. That was an easier one. I had a good answer for.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you could come up with it right away. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the Marketing Expedition series, and we hope to see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Find more online at peppershock.com.